18 to 22. Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Good afternoon, Professor Chow. Your office hours begin now, right?
Hi, Brittany. Yes, I can talk. What do you need?
I wanted to check if the midterms were marked yet. I'm a little nervous about how I did.
I'm really sorry. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I was planning to do it this weekend.
No problem. I just thought I'd check. While I'm here, the paper you assigned on the history of the American West…
Right. Do you need help with it?
Sort of. I've decided what area to focus on, silver mining in the 19th century. That industry had such a huge impact on the country's development. The thing is, the topic is pretty big. I need help narrowing it down.
Well, let me think. There are quite a few books and articles about the first silver mining boom, so I'd recommend looking at that. It happened after a large deposit of silver was found in a Nevada mountain. It was called the Comstock Lode, and one that huge had never been discovered before in the U.S. Its discovery started the silver rush.
I have done a little research on that. The Comstock Lode was first discovered in 1857, wasn't it?
Right, but at first no one realized that there was silver in the area. You see, the early prospectors were looking for gold. But they had trouble extracting the gold because there was all this bluish clay in the way. When this material was analyzed, it was found to contain high concentrations of silver. As a result, miners soon started flooding into the area.
Everyone wanted to get rich, I guess.
Exactly, and a lot of people did get rich. But that newfound wealth had a price. There were dangers involved. For example, the mining tunnels often collapsed. Let me explain. The silver ore was unusually soft. So soft, in fact, that miners could dig it out themselves using shovels and didn't have to rely on machines. But it also meant that the mine tunnels were weak and unstable. The walls frequently fell in and killed miners.
Mining technology back then must not have been very sophisticated. It sounds like miners had a very dangerous job.
But actually, that's another thing you should know about the Comstock Lode. It prompted the development of new, safer mining technologies. The problem of weak tunnels, for instance, led to square-set timbering. It's a way of stabilizing tunnel walls using wooden blocks. The blocks are sort of stacked against the walls to prevent them from collapsing.
That's interesting. So what happened to the mines? I read that about 20 years after the discovery, their output dropped dramatically. Did the silver just dry up?
Pretty much. Over a few decades, more than $700 million in silver was taken out of the mountain. But that couldn't last forever. Around 1880, the mines started to decline, and people began leaving the area.
This definitely sounds like an interesting topic.
Wonderful. I'm glad it works.
I'm heading straight to the library while this information is fresh in my mind. And I'm going to start writing well in advance of the deadline. I don't want to suffer like the last time a paper was due.
It's a good idea. Let me know if you have more questions.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
18. Why does the student go to see the professor? (19) Why does the professor mention the bluish clay found in the mines? 20. Why were new mining technologies developed for the Comstock lode? (21) What does the professor say about the mines of the Comstock lode?
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
I'm heading straight to the library while this information is fresh in my mind. And I'm going to start writing well in advance of the deadline. I don't want to suffer like the last time a paper was due.
(22) What does the student imply when she says this?
I don't want to suffer like the last time a paper was due.
(23 to 28) Listen to part of a lecture in an anthropology class.
So, the Mayan civilization began in 2000 BC and lasted until the 16th century. Last class, we went over the three main periods that divide its long history. And there's one thing that remained consistent throughout this time: a strong economy. I bet you're wondering how the Mayans created such prosperity. Well, there were a number of factors involved. The first was that they had access to abundant natural resources. The lands they occupied in Central America were fertile and diverse. Plus, the climate was mild and tropical. There was lots of sun and rain. The combination of fertile soil and good weather meant that the Mayan food supply was, well, let's just say that the average Mayan rarely had to worry about where his or her next meal was coming from. This, of course, helped to ensure stability and security. There were other resources too, besides food, I mean. The Mayans discovered useful minerals under the hills and mountains. With resources like these, they could create more wealth. Some of the minerals were used in luxury items. Jewelry, ornaments, stuff like that. Jade and turquoise were especially popular in this respect. Other minerals were used to produce tools and weapons. Now, another big part of the Mayans' economy was trade. Trade, as you know, is an important factor in all successful civilizations. I mean, the health of a civilization really depends on its ability to distribute its resources effectively. That's why these trade networks were so essential. They ensured people got what they needed to survive. The Mayans traded extensively among themselves, between their cities and towns. Usually, towns offered surplus items and received other goods in return. For example, a coastal town could trade fish for corn with a farming community. The Mayans also maintained trade networks with cultures outside of their lands. They traded basic necessities like salt and cotton, as well as high-value minerals like obsidian. This not only generated wealth, but also contributed to the overall development of Mayan society. These economic interactions often resulted in cultural exchanges as well. For instance, it was the Zapotec civilization that developed the writing system that was used by the Mayans. The third element I should mention is the system of tribute and tax collection used by the Mayans. Let me explain. At times, cities fought each other over resources and trade routes. But once a conflict was settled, the victorious cities collected tribute, some form of payment, from the conquered ones. In exchange, they guaranteed peace, stability, and continued trade. These powerful cities also collected taxes from residents in the form of goods. Overall, this system produced a concentration of wealth in cities. The Mayans benefited greatly from this wealth. For instance, it gave them the ability to support a large population. It also allowed them to invest in new technologies, which of course led to improvements in farming, architecture, and other industries. And a third consequence was the growth of a Mayan middle class. What I mean is, even Mayans who were not members of the nobility could experience lives of relative luxury. They had their basic needs met and enjoyed recreational activities in their free time. If any of this sounds familiar, it should. The same indicators of a strong economy, deep resources, large markets, solid governance, and so on. These can all be found in the example of the United States, arguably the most prosperous nation in history to date.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
23. What is the main topic of the lecture? "24. What can be inferred about the Mayan food supply? "25. What does the professor say about the minerals discovered by the Mayans? "26. Why does the professor mention Zapotec civilization? 27. According to the professor, what were the benefits of Mayan wealth? Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
If any of this sounds familiar, it should. The same indicators of a strong economy, deep resources, large markets, solid governance, and so on. These can all be found in the example of the United States, arguably the most prosperous nation in history to date.
28. What does the professor mean when she says this?
If any of this sounds familiar, it should.
(29 to 34). Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
So, animals communicate in a variety of ways, but the most common is a technique called vocalization. This is what I'll be focusing on this morning. Specifically, we'll look at a familiar sound that cats make. Purring is the most common vocalization among cats. It's a soft, rumbling sound. It happens when cats tighten their vocal passages as they're breathing. The air vibrates in the cat's vocal box as it goes in and out and causes purring. Depending on its volume, quality, and length, a purr can signify a few different things. I'm sure we have some cat owners here. Would any of you have an idea what cats are trying to say by purring?
Yeah, I own a couple of cats, and I've noticed they purr when they're relaxed, like when they sit on my lap.
Okay, good. Yes, purring is most often associated with a positive emotional state, such as contentment. And it's common for cats to feel happy and purr during physical contact, either with other cats or with humans. Cats often rest and groom together. They enjoy these activities, so they purr. Also, cats do something called kneading. They grab onto something with their paws and sort of massage it. It looks like they're kneading bread dough. This is also a behavior that shows contentment, and cats often purr during it to show that they're feeling good. Another function of purring is to express that a cat is hungry. Now, there was a study done in in Britain that found a noticeable difference in the sound of a purr that was from hunger. When the cats in the study wanted food, they purred, but they combined it with another sound, kind of like a cry or a whine that is similar to a baby's cry. Some people have even mistaken a cat's cry for a baby's. Why would cats make this sound? Well, to get a response from humans. In this case, food. They've learned that people are sensitive to this sound. We are more likely to tend to the cat to make it stop. Cats realize this and make the sound intentionally. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Professor, I also have a cat, and she's always purring at weird times, like when I'm taking her to the vet, and she hates the vet. Could purring also mean a cat is, I don't know, stressed out or something?
That's actually my final point, that cats purr when they're sick or distressed. There are some theories about this. It's likely that cats purr as a way to comfort themselves when they're upset or in pain. Researchers have linked purring to the release of endorphins, which are natural painkillers. What's more, the purring may actually have the ability to heal cats when they're sick. You see, purring causes vibration in the cat's body that can make swelling go down. Also, the low frequency of the vibrations has actually been shown to encourage bone and tissue healing. Obviously, that relieves discomfort. So purring not only helps them feel better, it literally helps them get better.
So, how can we tell the difference between a happy purr and a stressed out purr?
I wish there were a simple answer. You just have to pay attention. When interpreting vocalizations, context is important. The cat's condition and body language will usually provide some clues. Cats that lick their lips a lot could be suffering. So if your cat is purring and licking its lips, it's probably uncomfortable.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
29. What is the main topic of the lecture? "30. According to the professor, how do cats produce purring sounds? "31. Why does the professor mention bread dough? "32. How do cats motivate people to feed them? "33. How can purring reduce pain? Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
So, how can we tell the difference between a happy purr and a stressed out purr?
I wish there were a simple answer. You just have to pay attention. When interpreting vocalizations, context is important.
34. What does the professor mean when she says this?
I wish there were a simple answer.